Grandma sat on the edge of the old wooden bench, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders and her hands holding a small worn bag. She looked at the empty street, waiting for her son to return. Every day she came to this place hoping he would walk from the distance and smile at her. She remembered when he was a little boy she used to hold his hand and walk him to school. She remembered the laughter and the warmth of those days. Now the streets were empty and cold and people walked past without noticing her. She whispered his name softly, hoping someone would hear her. She closed her eyes and felt the wind on her face, remembering the time when her son promised to visit every week. But the weeks turned into months and months turned into years, and he never came. She sighed slowly, feeling the pain of being forgotten by someone she loved deeply. The sky turned gray and clouds covered the sun, and she felt the first drops of rain. She hugged her bag tightly and looked at the house across the street, hoping maybe today he would appear. Grandma stayed on that same bench even when the rain became heavier. People passed by with umbrellas and warm coats, but no one stopped to ask her anything. She looked at every face carefully, hoping one of them would be her son. She remembered how he used to run toward her after school, shouting her name and hugging her tightly. Those memories felt warmer than the shawl on her shoulders. She pulled the shawl closer and waited patiently, because waiting was all she had left. Every morning she woke up early, washed her face neatly, and came back to this spot believing today would be different. She believed her son might have been busy or lost or confused, but never heartless. She told herself that a mother should never stop hoping even when her heart feels tired. Her hands trembled from the cold, but she kept them folded in her lap. She watched the street lights turn on slowly as evening arrived and the rain softened into a mist. She felt hungry but did not move, because she was afraid that if she left even for a moment her son might come and not find her there. So she stayed still and silent, whispering prayers and holding on to memories, because memories were the only thing that kept her alive. As the night grew darker, Grandma stayed sitting on the bench watching the road with tired eyes. The sounds of cars passing slowly filled the air and bright lights flashed for a moment, then disappeared. She hugged her small bag closer to her chest, because inside it she kept a folded photo of her son taken many years ago. She took it out gently and looked at his smiling face, remembering how proud she felt the day the photo was taken. She remembered cooking his favorite meals and waiting by the window when he was late from work. She remembered how he once promised that he would never leave her alone, but life changed and people changed and promises faded with time. Her stomach ached with hunger and her back hurt from sitting so long, but she did not move, because this place was the last connection she had with her son. She believed that if she waited long enough, love would find its way back to her. She watched the empty street again and again, hoping to see a familiar walk or hear a familiar voice calling her name. She stayed there through the cold and silence, because for her waiting was not weakness, it was love, and a mother never stops loving even when her heart is breaking. Morning light slowly touched the street and Grandma was still sitting on the bench. She had not slept all night, but her eyes were open and full of hope. People started passing again on their way to work. Some looked at her with curiosity, some with pity, and most with no feeling at all. She watched every face carefully and stood up slowly whenever she thought she saw someone who looked like her son, but each time her heart sank when it was not him. She remembered how she used to wake her son early for school and pack his lunch carefully. She remembered brushing his hair and telling him to be kind to others. Now she was the one being ignored and forgotten by the world. Her legs felt weak and her body tired, but she refused to leave this place, because this was where her son had once told her he would meet her. She believed promises should be kept, even if only one person remembers them. She sat back down, holding her bag tightly, and whispered a soft prayer, asking only for one moment, one look, one sign that her son still remembered her. Grandma slowly opened her small bag and took out a piece of old bread she saved from yesterday. It was hard and dry, but she held it gently like something precious. She took a small bite and chewed slowly, while still looking at the road. She did not want to miss seeing her son, even for a second. The taste did not matter, because her heart was filled with waiting. She remembered the days when she cooked warm meals and her son would eat happily at the table, talking about his dreams. She smiled softly at the memory, then her smile faded when she looked around and saw only strangers passing by. Hours went by and the sun moved higher in the sky, but her son did not come. Her back started to ache and her feet felt numb, but she stayed strong because she believed a mother must be patient. She watched a young man walking with his phone in hand, and for a moment her heart jumped, thinking it was her son, but when he passed without looking, her heart felt heavy again. She wiped her eyes with the edge of her shawl and whispered his name quietly, promising herself she would come back again tomorrow and the day after, because love does not stop waiting. Grandma stayed on that bench as the day slowly moved forward. The sun went up and then slowly began to fade again. She watched shadows change on the road and counted footsteps of strangers as they passed her by. Some people walked fast, some slow, some laughed, some talked on their phones, but none of them were her son. She remembered the sound of his footsteps when he was younger, the way he used to run toward her without fear. She closed her eyes for a moment and imagined that sound again. It made her smile and cry at the same time. Her heart felt heavy, but she refused to stand up and leave, because this place had become her only hope. She believed that if she stayed long enough, her son would feel it somehow, a pull in his heart that would bring him back to her. She remembered the last day she saw him, the promise he made that he would come back soon. She replayed that moment again and again in her mind, as if doing so could change the ending. Her body felt weak from hunger and tiredness, but her love was stronger than pain. She adjusted her shawl and sat straight, looking at the road again, whispering his name softly to the wind, asking it to carry her love to wherever her son was. As evening returned, Grandma felt the air grow colder and the street lights turned on one by one. She wrapped her shawl tighter and stayed seated, watching the same road she had watched for years. She remembered how many nights she had waited here, and how many times she went back alone. She remembered standing at the window of her old house, waiting for her son to come home from work, cooking food that grew cold on the table because he never arrived. Those memories hurt her heart, but she held on to them. Because they were all she had left. She looked at the families passing by, mothers holding hands with their children and fathers carrying bags and laughing. She wondered if her son ever thought about her when he saw families like that. She wondered if he remembered her voice or her face or the way she used to kiss his forehead before sleep. Her eyes followed every man walking down the street, her heart jumping every time someone looked even a little like him. Her body felt heavy and tired, but she refused to give up, because giving up would mean accepting that her son was never coming, and she was not ready for that truth. She believed that as long as she waited there was still hope, and hope was the only thing keeping her alive. She stayed on the bench as the night deepened, whispering softly that she would wait again tomorrow and the day after, because a mother waits forever. The night became quiet and deep, and Grandma was still there on the bench. Her eyes were tired, but she forced them to stay open because she feared that if she slept she might miss the moment her son finally came. She listened to the distant sounds of the city, the hum of cars far away, the soft steps of someone passing behind her, the wind moving through trees. She pulled her shawl closer and leaned slightly forward as if her body itself was waiting. She thought about all the birthdays she celebrated, alone, lighting a candle and wishing for only one thing: to see her son again. She thought about holidays when houses were full of laughter and warmth. While she sat alone with silence, she wondered if her son remembered those days, if he ever felt a small pain in his heart without knowing why. She remembered the last phone call when he said he was busy and would call back soon. She waited for that call every day after that, but it never came. Her hands rested on her knees and trembled from the cold and age, but her heart was still strong with love. She looked at the road again, imagining footsteps walking toward her, imagining a voice calling her name. She told herself that even if years passed she would still be here, because a mother does not stop waiting when love lives inside her. Morning came again, and Grandma was still on the bench. Her body felt stiff and her bones hurt, but she slowly stretched and looked at the road with the same hope she carried every day. The city was waking up, people hurried to work holding coffee cups and talking loudly, but Grandma stayed quiet, watching every face. She thought about how many mornings she had started like this, waiting and believing today would be the day her son returned. She remembered how she used to wake her son, gently telling him to get ready for school. She remembered fixing his clothes and smiling even when she was tired. Now no one woke her, no one asked if she was cold or hungry, yet she still came here every morning because this place held her promise. She believed that promises had power even when forgotten by others. Her stomach felt empty and her head felt light, but she stayed sitting because leaving would mean losing the last piece of hope. She watched a man stop across the street and look in her direction, and her heart beat fast for a moment, thinking it might be him, but when he turned away her heart felt heavy again. She took a deep breath and told herself that love needs patience and a mother must be strong. She stayed there holding her small bag and whispering her son's name softly, letting the sound live in the air, hoping one day it would reach him. The day slowly moved forward, and Grandma stayed in the same place, watching time pass without moving her eyes from the road. She watched shadows grow longer and shorter, and felt the sun touch her face, then disappear behind clouds. She remembered the first day she came to this bench many years ago, wearing clean clothes and holding hope in her heart. She remembered sitting straight and smiling, believing her son would arrive any moment. As days turned into weeks and weeks into years, her body grew weaker, but her love never changed. She remembered writing letters to her son and never receiving replies. She remembered saving small gifts she wanted to give him when he returned, gifts she still kept in her bag wrapped carefully. She touched the bag gently, thinking about those gifts and wondering if she would ever place them in his hand. She felt hunger again, and dizziness came for a moment, but she stayed strong, holding the bench and breathing slowly. She watched people pass carrying bags, laughing, talking, living lives that felt far away from her own. She wondered if her son lived a life like that, and if he ever thought about her waiting here. She felt pain in her chest, but she told herself pain was part of loving deeply. She promised herself that even if her body failed one day, her love would remain sitting on that bench waiting faithfully. As evening returned again, Grandma felt her strength slowly leaving her body, but her heart stayed awake and alert. She looked at the road with the same eyes full of love and hope. She remembered how her son used to sit beside her and listen to her stories when he was young, how he used to say he would always take care of her when she got old. She smiled softly at that memory, even though it hurt. She wondered if he remembered those words or if life had erased them from his heart. She felt the cold air touch her face, and she wrapped her shawl tighter around herself. She had been sitting here for so many years that the bench felt like part of her life. She believed that this place remembered her tears, her prayers, and her patience. She watched the street lights turn on slowly and felt the night coming again. She closed her eyes for a moment and imagined her son walking toward her, calling her name, smiling and opening his arms. That image gave her strength to keep waiting. She told herself that even if he never came, her love was real and pure, and that love was worth every moment of waiting. She stayed seated, breathing slowly, listening to the quiet city, and holding her bag close as if holding her son's memory itself. Night fell and the city grew quiet. Grandma stayed on the bench wrapped in her old shawl, the cold air brushing her face. She held her small bag close and whispered softly to herself, imagining her son walking down the street. She thought about all the nights she spent alone in her house, staring at the empty room, wishing he would come. She thought about the meals she cooked that no one ate and the voices she missed hearing. She remembered the time she held him when he was
scared and how he laughed at
her silly songs. She thought about how she had prayed for his safety every single day, even when he did not call or visit. She felt a deep ache in her heart, but she also felt hope growing inside her, because hope was all she had left. She watched shadows move across the wet pavement and imagined they were him coming back. She closed her eyes and imagined his face smiling at her. She imagined the warmth of his hug, and she told herself that even if the world
forgot her, she would never forget him, and she
would wait as long as it took, because a mother's love never ends, and waiting is a way of keeping love alive. The next morning, Grandma woke up feeling the cold air on her face, but also a strange warmth in her heart. She slowly got up from the bench, her legs weak, but her spirit strong. She held her small bag close and looked at the street, imagining her son walking toward her. She walked slowly down the road, remembering all the time she had waited for him. Every memory filled her with love and sadness. She thought about the moments he laughed at her stories, the
time she kissed his forehead and told him she
loved him. She thought about the days she cooked for him and the nights she prayed for him. She realized that waiting had made her stronger, and that her love was never wasted. She imagined one day he might see her or hear about her, and know that she had been faithful all these years. She walked slowly, holding her head high and whispering softly that she would never stop waiting for him, that she would always remember him and love him no matter how long it took. She
felt tears in her eyes, not of
sorrow but of hope and pride, because she had loved deeply and patiently, and that love made her heart unbreakable. She looked at the city around her and smiled softly, knowing that even if he never came, her heart was full and her soul was alive, and that she had kept the promise of a mother to wait forever.